today I'm going to talk about some light novels that I have been reading and recommend to you guys. First up, we have Silent Witch, or Secrets of the Silent Witch. Now, this is one that a lot of people kept recommending me to check out, and you know what? It was pretty good. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really sure about what this was going in. I kind of went and bought it blind. This is about a young girl who is the Silent Witch, and the reason that she is a Silent Witch is because she can do all of this amazing casting without having to utter an incantation. The twist, however, is that, well, she's actually really shy and has a lot of difficulty with doing many things like having a conversation or, well, just your usual stuff. And what happens? She is forced to go to school. That's right. As soon as I saw that, I immediately checked out. I was like, oh, not another one where it's got an interesting premise and then they force a school arc. But I'm going to be perfectly honest, this one, while it does have a lot of those annoying school tropes that I cannot stand, I did actually enjoy this one quite a lot. It's just something really nice about it. It's the closest you are going to get to Komi Can't Communicate or Watamote in light novel form. And I think it's a little bit unique having a character who genuinely can't converse with other people, yet also isn't immediately swarmed by a harem or it becomes a perfect person. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a reason why they can do all of this incantation without being able to talk, because they can't really talk, and I liked it. I liked a lot of stuff here. I keep meaning to pick up further volumes, but I just haven't had the time yet. But yeah, I would recommend you guys check this one out. It's got a lot of really good things going for it that, yeah, it outweighs the whole school arc thing. Next up, we are going to look at a digital title, and that is Survival with My Mistress. Now, this is one that I had my eye on for quite some time. I kept seeing the light novel to buy in my local comic store, and I actually did buy the manga quite some time ago, and I actually haven't checked that out yet. I probably should check it out. Now, this is written by the same person who did the Space Mercenary series, and as you guys will probably remember, I didn't really like that one. It didn't really gel with me, but I actually had a little bit of a better time with Survival with My Mistress. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, it got a huge amount of problems, something that I probably won't cover all entirely in this video. Maybe I'll read the manga and I'll do a separate video on it. But Survival with My Mistress is essentially a Minecraft isekai. That's right, they go to another world and yeah, they have Minecraft powers, which I did appreciate. In fact, I did talk about this one. Somebody who turned around and went, oh yeah, the Minecraft isekai is kind of weird. And I was just like, Minecraft isekai? What are you on about? Then I read it and yeah, Minecraft powers. That's why it hasn't really been done before. Of course, he ends up in a situation that he is basically saved by this elf, and to put things together, one and one, she claims that he's her slave and she is his mistress in order to get him out of a sticky situation. And that's kind of where that whole plot thread ends. I mean, it does continue on, but I kind of expected something completely different. I don't know, it's one of the, it's the same issue as Space Mercenary, where it doesn't really want to go all of the way in what it's doing. It doesn't want to be a full-on blown hentai, but all of the ecchi stuff feels very juvenile and kind of like, oh, this happened, but I'm not going to tell you. And it's just kind of like, oh, well, we settled down and wink wink, you know what happened next. And it was just kind of like, it's like, if you're at least going to do that, go all out. Try and make it a little bit interesting rather than just going, oh, well, you know what's going on. It just felt very kind of juvenile in how it was put together. It didn't really do much for me, and quite frankly it didn't really end the volume in a way that I kind of felt, oh, I need to read more of this. It was enjoyable enough. I applaud the fact that they are doing a harem Minecraft series, and when it actually did focus on that, it was pretty darn good. It was unfortunately bogged down with far too much nonsense, with him just talking to other people, which quite frankly the conversations between the characters weren't interesting. The whole Mr. Slave thing wasn't interesting. It could have been done so much better. I really felt that it kind of missold me on that bit, but there's a lot of good that could be in here. So yeah, if you kind of want an ecchi series and you haven't, or you've already read Monster Girl Doctor and In Species Reviewers, yeah, this one's pretty fine. Next up is another one that I've talked about in a few top 10 lists, a few lists here and there, and it is Associate Professor Akira Takazuki's Conjecture Folklore Stories. Now, I'm going to continue to hype this one up because this one is a pretty good title. It's all about folklore stories wrapped in a interesting title in which a young man basically keeps having this dream about what happened when he was younger. He kind of stumbled into this whole thing of demons, and yeah, he is basically cursed. And cursed to be lonely, and yeah, he comes across the professor, this Akira Takazuki, and they start investigating folklore stories around the town. Now, if you want something a little bit more chill and a little bit more spooky, while also seeped with Japanese culture and, like I said, folklore stories, this is one that I would really recommend checking out. If you want something a little bit different from your usual isekai title, check this one out. In fact, I think nearly everything on this list is by far and away something different to your regular isekai, and yeah, it's another one I really recommend checking this one out. It's hard to kind of just see what else it is because it's a really good one. Like I said, if you want folklore stories, something a little bit more interesting, something a little bit more meaty than your usual, oh, I was sent to another world, now all of the girls love me, oh, I've got to have a school arc, all the girls love me kind of thing. Yeah, this one is really recommended. I really would recommend if you want something a little bit more different to your usual standard light novel fare. And yeah, this, like I said, there's not really much to see other than the initial synopsis, other than I would definitely recommend you guys check this one out at some point. While on the topic of something a little bit different, I continued my adventures with Arena the Vampire Cosmonaut. Now, this one is one that I really got into as soon as it came out. I never watched the anime. I believe this is far beyond the anime. This is like, even if they did a season 2 of the anime, this is still further. This is about a young man called Lev Leps, who is basically on the Russian side of the space race. So yeah, it's a historical one in an alternative universe, except kind of not really that much alternative. Except there is one little thing. Well, in order to reach the stars, the Russians and, well, the Americans, or, well, the United Kingdom, that they want to call it, they kind of doing any means necessary. That means testing on, well, animals, you know, monkeys, dogs, sending dogs into space. But what if there was a species? What if there was a species out there that you could pretty much kind of write off and not treat as a person? Because, let's face it, sending animals into space isn't the same as sending a human into space. Behold Irina, a vampire girl. Oh, well, kind of a vampire girl. And, well, she's going to be the first person to be tested and sent into space if she can survive. Now, this one is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of political intrigue. I'm not going to get too much into it because what I've said is basically the synopsis for the first part. What I'm going to say is that it does look like they're kind of following historic stuff, obviously giving it its own twist. Given its own little identity, I really would recommend checking this one out if you have an interest in the space race, or if you want a historical title that also is kind of like I said, just kind of a little bit more anime and kind of light novelish, but yeah, this one immediately jumped into my top 10 and I really can't wait. I think even volume 5 is actually out for this, so I really need to get reading and catch up and check this one out. Again, this one, Silent Witch, and a few others, I will probably do individual reviews on, but take it from me from now, this one, do not sleep on it. Absolutely 100% recommended. When there's something strange in your neighbourhood, who are you going to call? Well, if it's dungeons there, call the Dungeon Busters. Yes, now this is a title that I read quite some time ago and I did do a review on it, and I think it's actually one of the more popular light novel reviews. And yeah, I've continued dipping into this one for quite some time. I think it's still very kind of random whenever a volume comes out, but I recently read volume 4. And yeah, now this one I really like the idea of it. An older gentleman, overweight, comes across this dungeon in his back garden because all of these dungeons popped up across the world, and he explores the dungeon, works out the time between the dungeon and the real world's different. He becomes super buff, kind of unlocks all of these dungeons as the first one, and then gets told in a few years' time all of the monsters are come out of the dungeons and destroy the entire world. And he gets one of the 108 stars of destiny, basically, in card form. And it's kind of, there's a lot of card forms and gacha and stuff like that. You can, when you defeat a monster, you can get a card of that monster, or you can gamble and get a card of a potion, and the potion can cure all illnesses or make you grow your limbs back and all kinds of anime shiz. He gets a beautiful ninja as kind of his waifu card stand thing, and yeah, he opens up the Dungeon Busters, which is the intention of grabbing a few like-minded individuals to explore and clear out the dungeons. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? Yes, I really like this. I love the fact that it was an adult take on a lot of these dungeon explorers and stuff like that. The artwork, Serigan, the artist, knows how to attract a male audience, and it felt very adult for that. And once I got past volume 1, loved it. Volume 2, yeah, it was fine. Had a few issues, a few big issues. And volume 3 was kind of the same. And then volume 4 also kind of, yeah. So, because this is something that takes place over our world, unlike Arena, which focuses on historical stuff, this one has to have a lot of current politics. And yeah, there's some stuff that really isn't very good in here. While you'll get the whole kind of thing, oh well, they kind of just like, oh well, the Americans are kind of incompetent and to think that they rule the entire world and boss everybody around. And then you also get war crime denial. And yeah, when this series focuses on the dungeon busting, exploring the dungeon, getting the cards, the 108 Stars of Destinies, having the waifus and what have you, it's a very good series. Fantastic series. When it's been all political, it really goes too far into it. And unfortunately with volume 4 and volume 3, about 90% of it is the politics, and it's very uncomfortable to read what's obviously this author's ideas and stuff like that, and ideals. And yeah, it doesn't really work for me. So I think this one's got a lot of great content, but a lot of really bad content in here as well. So yeah, I want to recommend it, but recommend it at your own risk. It might not faze you, but to me and a few other people, it does faze us. So yeah, I'm probably going to stick with volume 5 still, because when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's terrible. Next up is another one from an anime that's currently airing and a manga that I also recently read. I actually did do a full-on video on this a few weeks ago on the channel, but we'll talk about it briefly here as well. Another one, that time I got reborn as a vending machine and I now wander the dungeon. Guy gets isekai'd, tries to save a vending machine, gets killed. He gets reborn as a vending machine and basically has to try and survive. Whenever you put a coin in, you get one of his items that he converts into points and he can use to spend on more and more things. Now, the light novel I absolutely love. I think the light novel is fantastic. The manga was a lot of fun too. The anime, yeah, it's kind of, it skirts over a few things. There's a few things in here that kind of, the anime skims past, shall we say. Let's face it, Shirley kind of got nerfed in there, the anime. And yeah, it's one that I kind of, it's hard to see. It's kind of one of those things. I love it. I love the product placement. I love the fact that it kind of advertises ramen and, you know, soup and cola and all of these things that we take for granted and is kind of the insane other world, and they're just like, wow, yo, kind of that kind of lovely, really nice foodie kind of series. But yeah, it's one of those ones. I just love this one. I think a lot of people are starting to warm up on it because this one was considered a joke. But now I think a lot of people have warmed up it because the anime is out. Go check out my video on it. I will try and convince you guys to check it out. The next two, well, I'm counting them as two, but let's face it, it's the same series plus a spin-off, and that is another one. I think the second season is airing, or the second half of the first season is airing right now, and that is Spy Classroom. Now, this is Spy Classroom short stories, and this is Spy Classroom Volume 5. Now, Spy Classroom is basically another spy-centric title in which a group of girls are basically about to drop out of school, or talented school, or spy school, or whatever, and they're basically lumped together and put into this specialist unit, and then are trained to become super spies by a super spy. And yeah, this is one of those ones. I have a lot of love for this one, but I also find that it gets quite annoying. One of the reasons being is that I just genuinely forget who most of the girls are. I can't remember many of the characters by name, and the problem is that each of these titles, it jumps between the girl's name and their tagline. So I was like, oh yes, I remember who Lily is. She's the one who got the poison. I was like, oh, I remember Sarah. It's like, she's the one who's got like the animals. And then it was like, who is Daughter Dearest? What is her real name? It's like, what is like Heaven, or whatever the code names are. I was like, I can't remember who these are. It just needs one of those little things at the front of the book and goes, this is who so and so is. But you know what it is? Each volume, it kind of focuses on a girl specifically. Unfortunately, after each specific volume, each of the girls kind of who's had the focus on, they kind of take a seat back. It's one of those ones where it's got a little bit too many characters at the very beginning before kind of like giving each character enough focus, if that makes sense. So the first volume will have Lily, she's the main character in that one, the other girls are in it. Then after that, volume 1, she kind of takes a backseat, another one of the girls kind of gets put in, but then also trying to juggle all of the other girls at the same time, giving the girls to kind of have a bit of limelight, which kind of is nice but also doesn't work for me. But also I really like this series, so it's kind of like, it's one of those ones. I read volume 1 and I kind of could have stopped. I can understand if you read volume 1 or watched volume 1 and just bounced off it, but it's entertaining enough. The spy stuff is entertaining enough, and like I said, it's a light novel, so you're not getting anything too in depth. I mean, each one is about 200 pages, and to be honest, each of the volumes so far have been pretty self-contained. Each of the missions have been somewhat self-contained. So yeah, if you just want a kind of simple, you know, hour or two reading of a simple, goofy spy series with cute girls doing cute things, this series is going to be good for you. Which is a good thing because they did a short story collection. And the short story collection focuses on 4 of the girls and gives them that little bit of day-to-day stuff that makes the characters that little bit more interesting than they would have been otherwise. This is one of the ones that I really like. For example, there's a girl called Sarah, and she's just kind of like, she's not really in the series that much, but through this one, and well, actually in this one as well, she kind of gets enough to kind of just go, oh yeah, you know what, she's probably the best one. It's quite weird in that it kind of does it that way, but yeah, this was very much needed in that it's a spin-off. It gives extra context for the characters, it gives it a little bit more of the day-to-day lives, gives them a little bit more ambition, especially when some of these characters haven't really had any focus. But yeah, I think if you like this, definitely check out the spin-off because it is worth checking out. The next one is another cooking one, and I finally got around to reading volume 3 of Cooking with Wild Game. Now, this is one that I read a few years ago, and I actually covered on the channel a long time ago, and I still remember putting so much effort into it and then putting a really nice picture on and really being happy about it, and then hardly anybody read it or watched the video because it's not a popular series. And the reason it's not a popular series is that it doesn't even have a physical release. I think it's one of those ones where if it had a physical release and an anime, it would have been absolutely huge, because this one is absolutely fantastic, with probably the best female character I have read in a light novel. At least one of the best ones anyway. Ifa is absolutely fantastic. She is a cool huntress with a cool huntress with a nice emotional and vulnerable side to her. So guy gets isekai'd, he gets reborn in another, well, doesn't get reborn, he gets sent to another world, and he used to be a chef in his old life, and Ifa is a huntress who's kind of like, she's the only one of her clan. It's kind of like a Stone Age kind of thing, the way they're doing it. So it's a clan in the forest kind of thing. She hunts these boars or whatever it is, and then he's like, oh, I'm going to cook them. And then we get pretty much an entire volume of him trying to learn how to cook these boars. And if you liked Food Wars, if you liked the food creation aspect of Food Wars, you know, where someone would be like, oh, well, I've got to try, and this is a combination, oh, this is a combination, and then after that they would go and eat stuff and clothes would explode. There's no clothes exploding in this one, unfortunately, but yeah, it's kind of like that. If you like the whole kind of technical side of food, where it's kind of like, oh, well, this is how we cook this, and this is how we'll like do this and this. That's kind of what you're getting with Cooking with Wild Game. And yeah, I've read volume 3, immediately bought volume 4, and then started reading other stuff, because that's what I always do. I think at the moment there's like 22 volumes out for it, and when I mentioned this on Reddit, someone was like, straight away was just like, oh yeah, actually there's like 90 volumes going to be out in Japan. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to read all of that. But it's one of those ones that you can kind of have little bites here and there. I think there's enough in each volume that you can kind of like them. The way I kind of see it is just like, you can pretty much end any volume and just go, and the two lived happily ever after and got married. Because that's kind of all you want. She hunts, he cooks the food. What more can you want? Fantastic series, really recommend checking it out. Next one is one that I was very apprehensive in reading, but honestly I was really glad I did. And this is one that a lot of people really hyped up when it first came out, and then I don't think I've heard anybody else talk about it, at least not recently. I think there was an anime which covered the entire thing, and I think this is only like 4 or 5 volumes, so yeah, nice short trip for you. So this is Higa Hero, or Higa Hero. After being rejected, I shaped and took in a high school runaway. And I avoided this because I was like, oh, this is an older guy, and the second character is a young girl. And I know from anime where this kind of plot usually ends up going. But I was really happy, and it didn't kind of go that way. So he takes in this runaway girl who's kind of like, oh, I don't want to go home or whatever, and I'm kind of trivialising it, but he's got emotional scars as well. He's been kind of like dumped by this same woman who he's had fancied for the last like 5 years or so, and I don't know, it's kind of like a father and a daughter, or an older brother and a younger sister kind of thing. It's a very nice way of doing it. He's kind of like, yeah, he dotes on her, he buys her, like, gives her money to buy clothes and stuff like that, but it does kind of feel rather genuine in it. And there is a bit in it where he kind of just goes, look, at the end of the day, I don't really want to get with you, I'm not going to get with you, that kind of thing. So it kind of just does cross all of that out. I'm sure it'll backpedal at some point because it's a light novel. But yeah, I was quite surprised at how much I really like this one, to the point that I'm planning on buying the rest of the volumes. I think when volume 4 maybe just came out. So yeah, once I get a chance, I'm going to buy the rest of the volumes, binge it all, and I will do a full-on review for you guys, because this one was fantastic. Thanks to Yen Press for sending it. I promise I will do a full-on review on this one someday.